Good morning, wherever you are and whenever you're watching. Thank you for being here. You are appreciated. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Apparently, according to my analytics, 45% of you aren't subscribed. Please hit that subscribe button. Join the channel. My goal for this year is to get to 100 people. I need your help to do that. I deal with mental health and physical health and how creativity has a positive effect on those things. True crime is a bit of a passion of mine, and I've been following this trial. But honestly, I cannot polish this. I can't. It's not doing my mental health any good because I don't feel that we're getting anywhere. We're just adding more and more and more into the case, and this isn't giving us a timeline. This isn't giving us motive. Now, yesterday they brought in the PI lawyer who was representing the plaintiffs in the boat case, the civil boat case. And to start off with, I was like, this adds nothing. It's just another layer of people who might want revenge, right? And that's still true. That is still true because he was suing Alex Murdaugh for $50 million. That is a lot of money. And apparently this kind of lawyer, their fees are around 40%. That's nearly that's around $20 million. And that is a big reason to want revenge and be angry. He testified that he and Alex had a bit of a confrontation at a fundraiser. And Alex said to him, I thought we were friends. Why are you doing this to me? I'm broke. I can just about get $1 million together, plus, the limited insurance payout, which was around 500,000. And the guy was like, don't believe you. Don't believe that you're broke. Don't believe that is all you can cobble together. I'm doing this because this is my job. And I think you're hiding money. He also, he said to him, if just because we're friends doesn't mean I wouldn't burn down your house, I think was the phrase he used. Could be read as a threat, could be just lawyers kind of sparring. And he was filing motions, and this is a bit improper, but he was filing motions to push Alex, to put pressure on him to settle the case, because that's usually what happens. Now, he did say that, the case would go away. They would settle for whatever Alex could come up with if there was an outside job on the murder of his wife and son. Because he becomes a sympathetic character, it's harder to get a big settlement. Going after someone who is bereaved and struggling, it doesn't play well in a court. This is right now the only loose link to motive. Alex would gain out of this, but why kill both of them with two different guns? Why, commit the perfect crime? Or how do you commit the perfect crime when you are meant to be panicky and not thinking straight? Because you have to not be thinking straight unless you are a complete psychopath to do that kind of thing. We then heard from this lawyer friend, Ronnie Crosby, who used to work with Alex. He was also a partner at that firm. They were all there after the murders to offer support and comfort. He testified that he didn't feel he was there as a lawyer, but as a friend, despite the fact that it would appear that all of them were kind of chiming in with advice. He's the one who heard the conversation between Alex and his current defense. We didn't hear what he heard or what the conversation was, any of the content. but it was basically I wasn't there as a lawyer. Attorney-client privilege doesn't exist. So nothing relevant at the moment. The court was put in a recess while the judge considered this argument to bring in the financial crimes and the boat case. When we came back, the judge said, yeah, it is admissible as long as there is a link. Defense have introduced a limiting statement, which is basically, this isn't about character. This is about motive. You can't use this to decide whether he's a bad person or not. You can only use this to decide whether he had the motive as part of this circumstantial case, which is fair enough. But the jury can't unhear things. And it is very difficult for your average person to compartmentalize those kind of things, especially when they can't take notes. So it is really, really difficult. We will see how that goes. But basically, it means the state can bring in all of the fraud allegations. So that's 106 counts. They can bring in the boating accident, which means, this could be 100 or more witnesses that are going to have very long foundation from the state, because that seems to be how they're working. And it may or may not pay off. This could go either way. It could be seen by the jury as, here's a list of horrible things that he's done. That's definitely motive, or we don't like him, so we're going to find him guilty. Could go the other way. It could be that they look at it and kind of go, well, that's 100 or more people who had motive. And as a defense attorney, if I know nothing about law, but I would be asking people how angry they were at Alex Murdaugh, and how betrayed they felt. Whether it's a fellow lawyer who feels he betrayed the profession, fellow lawyer who was screwed over, a victim of that stuff. And that's not including members of the public who are angry, or people who are loosely attached, friends of the deceased, whatever. Could go either way, but this is, the judge did say it is prejudicial, can't speak, but it's also probative. And I kind of agree, but if it's very broad. And I feel it should be limited a little bit. We did hear from Michelle Smith, who was the nurse looking after Alex's mother. She said he turned up the night of the murders, 8:30, 9:30. That's a big window when you're talking about a timeline for this kind of case. If he turned up at 8:30, then maybe he would have had time for the murders. If he turned up at 9:30, maybe not. He says he visited for 30 to 40 minutes. She said he visited for 20 minutes. And she said that kind of, this is what she's saying on the stand, but her interviews with SLED and around June 16th, she said 30 to 35 minutes. So how reliable is that? If there's an hour window when he turned up and there's a 15 or 20 minute difference between how long he stayed, how helpful is that to the state? And I don't think it is. Bless her, she was such a sweet lady, and she obviously didn't want to be there, but she was very easily led. She wanted to get it right. And for me, that isn't a reliable witness. If I'm pretending to be a juror, she's not reliable. She can't remember the timeline. She gets confused over dates. She gets asked questions and just stares blankly, as if she's not sure if she's being spoken to. She had a car wreck accident in September, so 3 months after the murders, and she was talking to the officer, and she told the officer that she saw Alec kind of 5 or 6 days after the murder, a couple of days after his dad's funeral, with a blue top tucked under his arm. He came in at 6:30 in the morning, which was an unusual time. He knocked on the wall to be let in when he phoned to be let in the night of the murders. So maybe sus, maybe not. He went upstairs, left the tarp upstairs on a chair, and left. She then saw him in a white truck. Like, she thought he had left. He came back in a white truck. He got the black truck, which she said she had never seen before. She said there was a bruise or a cut on his forehead, but that's 5 days after the murders. I don't see that that's relevant, but she was asked about that. Now, this top didn't come into things until September, which is why his mum's house, Miss Libby, her house wasn't searched until September. The officer wrote up a report on it and said that she said there was a gun tucked in it. And she said, that's not true. I didn't say that. So this is what led to SLED going and having a look at Miss Libby's house. She was then, this nurse was interviewed another 2 or 3 times after that. So obviously there's, her story has changed. And then there was, the state asked her if she had been interviewed by the defense, and she said yes, and they then wanted the audio recording of that. This should have come out in discovery or pre-trial. They seem to be bringing in more and more during the trial. And my theory on this is they're trying to make the defense look like they're hiding stuff. For me, as lovely as Miss Smith is, she's not a credible witness because of that confusion over dates and times and timeline. After lunch, they carried on questioning her about this top, and then there was a jacket introduced. And, is this the jacket? I've never seen the jacket. Have you seen a photograph of it? Yes, but she says top over and over and over again. That's what he was carrying. It was a top. Kristen Moore, a SLED special agent with a crime scene unit, she was tasked with going into the house and searching for this top. The blue top was found in a cupboard, in a storage box with plates underneath. They also went through a coat closet and found a blue raincoat. That was up on the second floor in the same kind of rough area as the bedroom where the top was. Now, from what we can gather, they didn't take the top and they didn't test the top. Well, if you're looking for a top, why didn't you do that? They tested the coat. They did 3 different tests for blood, all negative. So we've had all of this talk about this top and this coat. They haven't tested the top, and the coat has nothing. It's a little bit sus that kind of later on they talk about testing the coat for GSR, and they tested inside, not out, nothing outside, only inside. And the detective knew exactly where to check. Not saying anything. So they're kind of undoing their own case because they're talking about a top, and he had a top and blah, blah, blah. No top, no tests, no blood on the coat. she was the first and only witness to use gloves while handling evidence, which is, nice. One of the tests, the LCV test, they tested the whole coat. They sprayed the whole coat, and it's turned it violet from the blue colour that it was. The problem you have with that is, has that destroyed evidence and caused problems for any future testing? Again, a whole bunch of evidence. A t-shirt that Alex had was tested. That was touched with no gloves. These things had GSR on them. That doesn't mean it was the shirt he was wearing. If there's stippling on the victims, he had to have been close enough to get some kind of blowback. So yes, GSR, where's the blood? It's really easy to confuse people, but scenes like that are messy. There's a lot more blowback and that kind of thing. So it's still a very circumstantial case. They don't really have any physical evidence. The best motive is the boat case. But if that's the case, why take out both? Why kill your favourite son? The son that you most identify with, because both Alex and Paul were screw-ups. Paul didn't want to go into the family business, and it would appear that Alex felt that pressure to go into the family business and didn't want to. That's what led to addiction and fraud to cover up the addiction and, all of those things. You can explain all of that away. You can't explain away why he killed both family members. If you're going to kill someone, then you just kill one, and you do it when no one else is around that might be a witness. It's a very risky thing to do. And if it was, an in-the-moment panic situation, how is it a perfect crime? If it's a well-planned thing, why kill both? If he's using his prosecutor's knowledge, all of this knowledge that people are talking about, he is obviously going to be the prime suspect, and more stuff is going to come out, and it's not going to make everything go away. Even the boat case, even if they had settled, he has still got to sell property. He has still got to deal with estates from all three people, including his dad, who passed away. This doesn't make life easier. Might make the boat case less money, but it's not going to make life easier. I'm not there yet, and I am not interested in covering financial crimes, because if the testimony about the cell phones and whether it was landscape or portrait and when it stopped, all of these things without context, if you're doing that with financial crimes, it's just going to be a list of numbers that don't feel relevant because the state are incapable of making that leap. When they were talking to the lawyer about, and the lawyer gave them motive, they didn't seize on that. They didn't kind of make a point to the court that was the link. We had to leap there. And that's just hard work. So I think what I'm going to do is keep an eye on the trial and report back anything that is useful when it comes to the actual murder trial. But I cannot sit for 9 hours a day listening to testimony about spreadsheets. I can't do it. It's not me. I am not a maths person. And following that already has been pretty difficult and boring. And also, you know, it doesn't really, unless they can get into the nitty gritty of state of mind, unless there's a psych eval or, you know, he was seeing a therapist, you know, that doesn't really get into my area, into my wheelhouse. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, but I probably won't be doing daily recaps. Because I've already spent 80 hours on this, 80 plus hours now. And it is just going to, you know, it's elongated the trial and it's made it a hell of a lot more boring. So I hope you don't mind. I will be producing a few other videos about stuff. So yeah, thank you for joining me on this journey. I will be back, but not as regularly on this. Please hit likes and subscribe. Please share. Please leave a comment. Tell me where you're at with all of this. Do you think his alibi has been blown out the water by the Miss Smith, the nurse? Or do you think, like me, that this just it widened that timeline too much? What do you think of the tarp versus coat? Tell me where you are at, and hopefully I will speak to you soon. Thank you for being here.